Gurave Namaha. Gita's words of guidance. Chapter Work 9.7. Who is a real Karma Yogi? One who works decidedly, laying aside all of one's egoistic, selfish, or personal urges. The wise, possessed of knowledge, having abandoned the fruits of their actions, freed from the fetters of birth, go to the state which is beyond all evil. 2.51. A real Karma Yogi is one who understands that his concern is with action alone, that he has no concern with the results, that he should not entertain the motive of gaining a fixed fruit for a given action, and that he should not sit back courting inaction. In short, the advice is to make the worker release himself from all his mental preoccupations and through work make him live in the joy and ecstasy of a diviner self forgetfulness. The work itself is his reward. He gets himself drunk with the joy and satisfaction of a noble work done. By thus acting readily, to face all external challenges, one can find peace easily. A bosom thus purged of all existing vasana bondages is to that extent considered better purified for the purposes of meditation and the final Vedantic realization of the infinite glory of the self. 9.8. Who is the best type of man of action? He who lives in peace and joy and works enthusiastically, come rain or shine. An agent who is free from attachment, non-egoistic, endowed with firmness and enthusiasm, and unaffected by success or failure, is called sattvic, pure. 18.26. A sattvic actor is one who is free from attachment to any of his kith and kin, mukta sangha, and non-egoistic, anahamvadi. He is one who has no clinging attachment to the things and beings around, as he has no such false belief that the world outside will bring to him a desirable fulfillment of his existence. He sincerely feels that he has not done anything spectacular, even when he has actually done the greatest good to mankind, because he surrenders his egocentric individuality to the Lord through his perfect attunement with the infinite. When such an individual who has destroyed in himself his ego sense and the consequent sense of attachment works in the worldly fields of activities, he ever acts with firm resolution, dhruti, and extreme zeal, utsaha. The term dhruti means fortitude, the subtle faculty in man that makes him strive continuously towards a determined goal. When obstacles come his way, it is his faculty of dhruti that discovers for him more and more courage and enthusiasm to face them all and to continue striving towards the same determined goal. This persevering tendency to push oneself on with the work until one reaches the halls of success, unmindful of the obstacles that one might meet with while on the path, is called dhruti. And utsaha means untiring self application with a dynamic enthusiasm on the path of achievement while pursuing success. Lastly, a sattvic actor is one who ever strives unperturbed both in success and failure, in pleasure and in pain. The faculties of the intellect, the beauties of the heart, the vitality of the body are all vehicles for the sacred will of the spirit to sing through. If the vehicles are not properly disciplined, and if they do not come to surrender totally to the infinite, the Lord, they get broken and shattered, identifying with the agitations of the body, of the mind. The ego is born, and the ego, so born, gets riddled with desires as it gets anxious over the fruits of its actions. When one works thus with neither ego nor desire, one experiences vasana purgation. This is possible only when one has the higher goal in view at all times. Next chapter, success. 10.1. How can man increase his efficiency? A. By keeping away negative thoughts such as craving for pleasures or having an aversion to an uncomfortable situation. Attachment and aversion for the objects of the senses. Abide in the senses. Let none come under their sway, for they are his foes. 3.34. Krishna indicates here the great robber in the within of man, which loots away the true joys and thrills of right living. Attachments and aversions of the sense organs for their respective sense objects are instinctive and natural in everyone. The sense objects by themselves are incapable of bringing any wave of sorrow or agitation into the within. We get agitated and disturbed not at the level of our sense organs but in our mind. The mind gets disturbed because when the stimuli reach the mind, it accepts in its inherent mischief certain typical types of stimuli as good and their opposites as bad. Thereafter, it gets attached to the stimuli it experiences as good and develops an aversion for the opposite type of stimuli. The mind is prepared to suffer the agonies of existence in the sorrowful plurality. Whenever it comes in contact with the infinite number of objects outside, it pants to court the things of its own attachment and labors to run away from the things of its own aversion. This excitement of the mind is truly its tragedy. Having stated this truth, Krishna advises all seekers, let none come under their sway. The philosophy of the Gita does not suggest, even in its implications, any kind of running away from the world of sense objects. Krishna's creed is to live here and now, in the midst of our situations in life, in this very world, and to experience them through our sacred vehicles of the body, mind, and intellect. The only insistence is that on all occasions a wise man should be a master of the vehicles and not a helpless victim of these matter envelopments. And the secret of this mastery in life is to live free from the tyrannies of attachments and aversions. B. By increasing a sattvic mood in oneself. The term guna, as used in the dialectics of the Gita, indicates not the properties of a material, but the attitude with which the mind functions. The psychological being in every one of us comes under the influence of the different climatic conditions prevalent in the bosom. These are called the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. When through every gate sense in the body, in this body, the light of intelligence shines, then it may be known that sattva is predominant. 14.11. If the mind is agitated by rajas and the intellect is veiled by tamas, even ordinary, efficient perceptions become almost impossible. Thus, the more often and more completely we go beyond rajas and tamas and thereby make our bosom full of sattva, the more grows our capacity to observe, to analyze, to understand, and to become aware of the world outside and judge it correctly. The mechanism of knowing the world outside is the intellect, and the consciousness reflected in the intellect is the light of intelligence by which we illumine the world of ideas, feelings, and objects available in our life. The sunlight outside never comes directly to a room to illumine the things in the room. It is always the light of the sun reflected on the walls that illumines a cozy room. Similarly, the light of consciousness reflected in the intellect is the beam of light that illumines the world of objects. The gunas are the influences under which the mind and intellect live. It is very well known that a clean and steady reflecting medium will reflect more efficiently than an unsteady, unclean surface. Rajas creates agitations and makes the intellect unsteady. Tamas creates veils and makes the intellect unclean. Naturally, the greater the proportion of rajas and tamas in a bosom, the lesser will be its quota of intelligence. Therefore, it is highly scientific to say that at the moment of knowing the world and comprehending it, one's bosom is surely in its pure sattvic mood. See, by living and acting in the present, that is, preventing memories of the past and anxieties about the future from clouding the intellect, Krishna expounds a technique of acting without ego and egocentric desires. Renouncing all actions in me, with the mind centered on the self, free from hope and egoism, free from mental fear, do you fight? 3.30. Renounce all actions in me. We have already noticed that by the first person pronoun, Krishna means the Supreme Self, the Divine, the Eternal. Renouncing all activities unto Him with a mind soaked with devoted remembrances of the Self, Adhyatma Chetasa, the Lord advises Arjun to act on. Renunciation of the action does not mean an insipid life of inactivity. Actions performed through attachment and desires are renounced the moment we take away the egocentric and the selfish stink from our actions. A serpent is dangerous only as long as its fangs are not removed. The moment they are taken out, even the most poisonous reptile becomes a tame creature incapable of harming anyone. Similarly, action gives rise to bondage only when it is performed with a heart laden with selfish desires. Actions performed without these desires are not actions at all, inasmuch as they are incapable of producing any painful reaction. Here, the renunciation of action only means giving up of the wrong motives behind the action. Not only do we need to renounce all wrong actions, but we also have to make a few adjustments in our inner instruments in order to bring out an unobstructed flow of the Creator's will through us. These adjustments are indicated here by the two terms without hope and without ego. Without hope. Hope is the expectation of a happening that is yet to manifest itself and mature in a future period of time. Whatever be the hope, it belongs not to the present, it refers to a period of time not yet born. Without ego. Our egocentric concept of ourselves is nothing but a bundle of happenings and achievements of ours which took place or were gained in past moments. Ego is therefore the shadow of the past, and it has an existent reality only with reference to the dead moments of the past. If hope is thus the child of the unborn future, the ego is the lingering memory of a dead past. To revel in ego and hope is an attempt on our part to live either in the dead moments of the past or in the unborn moments of the future. Fight is to be understood here as our individual fight with circumstances in the silent battle of life. Thus, the advice is not for Arjuna alone, but to all persons who would like to live life fully and intelligently. D. By enduring pain and pleasure with courage and calmness. The contacts of the senses with objects, O son of Kunti, which cause heat and cold, pleasure and pain, have a beginning and an end. They are impermanent. Endure them bravely, O descendant of Bharata. 2.14. That the same objects can give two different types of experience to two different individuals is very well known, the object remaining the same. If it can give different experiences, it is evident that it is because of the difference in the mental composition of the individuals. It is also observed that objects of one's intense fancy during a certain stage in one's life become a nuisance to the same individual after a time. For as time passes, the mental constitution of the individual also changes. In short, it is very clear that the external objects can convey their stimuli and give us an experience only when our minds come in contact with the objects through the sense organs. Having understood this finite nature of the changeable objects of the world, wherein every one of them has a beginning and an end, on no occasion need a wise man despair the least of things, despair the least of things that are or of things that are not. Heat or cold, success or failure, pain or joy, none of them can be permanent, since every situation of its own nature must keep on changing. It would be foolish to get ourselves upset at every change. It is wisdom to suffer all situations meekly with comfort and consolation in the knowledge of their finite nature. It is the attitude of the wise to go through life both in joy and sorrow, in success and failure, in pain and joy, with the constant awareness even this will pass away. 10.2 How can we enhance our usefulness to others? Understand that being useful to others is the way for ourselves to evolve by diluting our personal attachments and weakening our ego. To serve others is to serve the Lord. Janaseva is Janardan Seva. Naraseva is Narayan Seva. As the ignorant men act from attachment to action, O Bharat, so should the wise men act without attachment, wishing the welfare of the world. 3.25 To the extent we work for larger schemes to bless a vaster section of humanity, to that extent the attachment loses its poison and comes to bless the ego. Many poisons serve as medicines in their diluted form, while the same in a concentrated form can bring instantaneous death. The ego and egocentric desires bind and destroy man, but to the extent he can lift his identifications to include and accommodate in it larger sections of the living world, to that extent, the attachment gathers an ethical halo, a divine glow, and becomes a cure for our subjective pains and imperfections. Here, the practical method suggested is that Arjun should work unattached to his own egocentric, limited concept of himself and his relations, and he must enter into the battlefield as a champion fighting for a cause noble and righteous against the armies that have come up to question the child and challenge the deathless values of higher living as propounded and upheld by Hindu culture. Next chapter, meditation. 11.1 What exactly is meditation? The flow of the same kind of thoughts, all related to the Supreme Truth, uninterrupted by contrary or different thoughts, is meditation. Some by meditation behold the self in the self by the self, others by the yoga of knowledge, Sankhya Yoga, and others by Karma Yoga. 13.25 The great spiritual scientists of the past evolved various roads, all converging at the same goal. Each path is the fittest for the one who is walking it. No path can be said to be nobler than the others. Paths are merely meant for purifying the inner equipment. And when the mind becomes steady and concentrated, and the intellect is redeemed from its wasteful habits of wrong imaginations, then the equipment, body, mind, and intellect, is ready for higher flights through the path of meditation. Meditation, according to Sri Shankara Bhagavad Pada, consists in withdrawing by concentration all the sense organs away from their respective sense objects into the mind, and then withdrawing the mind into the inner intelligence, and then contemplating upon the highest. It is a continuous and unbroken thought flow, like a stream of flowing oil. In order to pursue this path, naturally the individual must have a dynamic head and heart, both minimally disturbed by their own subjective defects. 11.2. On what does one meditate? The highest form of meditation consists of steady contemplation on the nature of the self, the Atman. Other forms of meditation do exist in the vast variety of spiritual practices, such as meditating on a form, a sound, etc. Little by little, let him attain quietude by his intellect held firm. Having made the mind established in the self, let him not think of anything. 6.25. Patiently with the intellect, the mind is to be controlled and rested in the contemplation of the self. The seeker is advised to bring back the mind that has rushed out into dissimilar channels of thinking. This withdrawal of the mind by sheer willpower may be successful to a degree, but as soon as it is brought back, it will rush out again into another fanciful line of thinking. Very rarely do the sadhakas, seekers of truth, realize that the mind means the flow of thoughts. A steady, motionless mind is no mind at all. Therefore, in meditation, when the mind is withdrawn from the sense objects, this very process of withdrawal is to be completed by a conscious effort on the part of the meditator in applying the same mind intellect equipment in contemplation of the self. This idea has been remarkably well brought out when the Lord contemplates his instruction by the term bringing it under the sway of the self alone. 11.3. How do we practice meditation? The Lord gives several instructions related to choice of place, right sitting posture, the way to control the mind, etc. Let the yogi try constantly to keep the mind steady, remaining in solitude alone, with the mind and body controlled, free from hope and greed. 6.10. Having in a clean spot established a firm seat of his own, neither too high nor too low, made of a cloth, a skin, and kusha grass, one over the other. 6.11. There, having made the mind one pointed with the actions of the mind and the senses controlled, let him seated on the seat practice yoga for the purification of the self. 6.12. Let him firmly hold his body, head, and neck erect and still, gazing at the tip of his nose without looking around. 6.13. Details of how meditation is to be conducted are given here. Sitting in solitude. One should practice meditation. This word has been unnecessarily so overstretched in recent times in India that the term meditation brings a sense of horror and fear into the minds of the spiritual novice. It does not mean that meditation can be practiced only in the jungles or in the solitude of caves. It only means that the seeker should try to withdraw himself from his mental and physical preoccupations and retire to a corner in his house for the purpose of early meditation. Solitude can be gained only when there is mental withdrawal from the world outside. One who is full of desires and constantly meditating upon sense objects cannot hope to gain any solitude even in a virgin forest. Again, the word solitude, rahasi, suggests a meaning of secretiveness, indicating that religion should not be a broadcast of self advertisement but must be a set of true values of life secretly practiced within the heart, ordering our way of thinking and encouraging our pursuit of the nobler values in life. Physically alone, ekaki, for the purpose of meditation, one's success in inward quietude will be directly proportional to the amount of self-control one is practicing in daily life. Proportional to the amount of self-control is practicing in daily life. Self-control one is practicing in daily life. Self-control is not possible unless we know how to free ourselves from the eagerness to possess and the anxiety to hoard. To renounce our preoccupations with our endless plans for possessing more is indicated here by the terms free from hope, nirashi, and free from possessions. Free from possessions, aparigraha, indicates releasing all our anxieties in saving, hoarding, and protecting what we possess. In a clean place. This is important inasmuch as the external conditions have a direct bearing upon the human mind. In a clean place, there is more chance for the seeker to maintain a cleaner mental condition. Apart from this, commentators explain that the place should be rid of mosquitoes, houseflies, bugs, ants, etc., and such other creatures that may disturb the beginner's mental concentration, which he is trying to turn inward. Establish a firm seat. In his seat, the meditator is asked to sit steady, sthiram, without moving the physical body at short intervals and without swinging the body either forward or backward or sideways. The seeker is asked to get firmly established in his seat because physical movement immensely contributes to the shattering of mental concentration and inner equipoise. This is very well realized by all of us if we only remember our attitude when we are engrossed in sincere and serious thought. In order to get established in a firm posture, it would be advisable to sit in any comfortable seat asana with the vertebral column erect, fingers interlocked, and hands thrown in front. Make the mind single pointed, subduing the faculty of imagination and the activities of the sense organs. This is the instruction given by Krishna. Single pointedness is the very potent nature of the mind. The mind gets stunned by its own silence, confused and even crazed when it gets dynamized by either the inner forces of its own surging imaginations or the outward pull exerted by the hallucinations of the sense organs. If these two avenues of dissipation are blocked, instantaneously the mind becomes by its own nature single pointed. To keep the single pointed mind constantly at the steady contemplation of the ultimate self is the inner yoga that has been mentioned here. Firmly, the meditator should firmly hold his body in such a fashion that his vertebral column is completely erect. The head and the neck should be erect in this posture, which is geometrically perpendicular to the horizontal seat upon which the yogi is firmly settling himself. It is pointedly indicated that he should hold his body firmly. This term should not be misunderstood as holding the body in tension. Firmly here means that the body should not be held stiffly but relaxed. It must be held in such a manner that here should not be any tendency to swing forward or backward or sideways from right to left. Gazing at the tip of his nose, the seeker, having thus made himself ready for meditation, should gaze at the tip of the nose. This does not mean that an individual should, with half opened eyes, deliberately turn his eyeballs towards the tip of his own nose. The term tip of his nose means that the meditator, while meditating, should have his attention as though turned towards the tip of his own nose so that his concentration may not be dissipated and his mind may not wander around. What lifestyle? How 11.4. What lifestyle supports the practice of meditation? Moderation in food, speech, and sleep. Verily, yoga is not possible for him who eats too much, nor for him who does not eat at all, nor for him who sleeps too much, nor for him who is always awake, O Arjuna. 6.16. Moderation in indulgence and activities at all levels of one's personality is an imperative requisite which alone can assure true success in meditation. Intemperance would bring discordant and righteous agitations in the various matter layers of the personality, shattering the harmonious melody of integration. Therefore, strict moderation in food, sleep, and recreation is enjoined. Everything should be well measured and completely defined. Yoga is not possible for him who eats too much, nor for him who does not eat at all. Here, the term eat should be understood in its comprehensive meaning as including all sense enjoyments, mental feelings, and intellectual perceptions. It is not only the process of consuming things through the mouth, it includes the enjoyments gained through all the avenues of sense perceptions and inward experiences. Neither too much sleep, which unnecessarily dulls our faculties and renders the individual more and more gross, nor no sleep at all is the right policy for a student in spiritual life. Intelligent moderation is the law. Yoga becomes the destroyer of pain for him who is moderate in eating and recreation, who is moderate in his exertion during his action, who is moderate in sleep and wakefulness. 6.17. In this verse, we have a clear direction on how to avoid the victimization of ourselves by the work we undertake. Not only must we be temperate, discriminately careful in choosing the right field of activity, but we must also see that the efforts that we put into that activity are moderate, चेतस्- चेस्तस्य चेस्तस्य 6.17 चेष्टस्य चेष्टस्य having selected a divine work, if we get bound and enslaved in its program of effort, the chances are that the work, instead of redeeming us from our existing vasanas, will create in us more and more new tendencies, and in the exhaustion created by the work, we will slowly sink into agitations and perhaps even into animalism. Krishna indicates that sadhaks and seekers of truth during their early practices should not overindulge in the world of perceptions, nor try to practice meditation for long and weary hours and force inner silence. 11.5. What is the ultimate achieved by meditation? Steady abidance in self knowledge, which implies liberation. The yogi engaging the mind, thus, in the practice of yoga, freed from sins, easily enjoys the infinite bliss of Brahman contact. 6.28. Engaging himself thus in the battle for evolution and inward mastery. A meditator steadily grows out in the shadowy regions of his own spiritual ignorance and imperfections to smile forth in luxurious extravagance into the sparkling sunshine of knowledge. When the meditator keeps his mind undisturbed in the roaring silence within, in the white heat of meditation, his mind gets purified like a piece of iron in the smithy furnace. In short, as we said earlier in 4.3, the halt moment is the frontier line up to which human effort can raise the mind. There it ends itself just as a balloon, as it goes higher and higher, blasts itself in the rarefied atmosphere of higher altitudes and drops down, merging the balloon space with the space outside. Similarly, the mind too, at the pinnacle of meditation, shatters itself, drops the ego down, and merges with the Supreme. Just as the space in the balloon automatically merges with the space outside when it has exploded, so too, when the finite mind is ended with ease, it attains the infinite bliss arising out of its contact with Brahman. Next chapter, Perfect Person. 12.1. What is the description of a perfect person? experience of completeness within, absence of any personal desire, and effortless mastery over the senses are the mind characterize and the mind characterize a serene sage. When a man completely casts off, O Partha, all the desires of the mind and is satisfied in the self by the self, then he is said to be one of steady wisdom. 2.55 Hari Om. We continue in next video.